With that being said, let's dive into the first thing here. So, if I can get this to work. So, as you can see, now I lost. What's happening? There it is. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, there we go. We're moving up in the world on this podcast, just pretty slow here. First topic, most important topic, in my opinion, Tristan. I don't know about you. The Cleveland Browns trade out of nowhere last Friday for edge rusher from the Vikings, Zadarius Smith. So before we actually talk about it in depth, as you can see up here on the screen, Tom Pelissero tweets out the full trade. Browns get Zadarius Smith, a 2025 6th-round pick and a 2025 7th-round pick. And the Minnesota Vikings get a 2024 5th and a 2025 5th-round pick. So also, as you can see at the bottom, his contract was reworked, guaranteeing him $11.75 million in 2023, and he will be a free agent next year, which I think is an important part of this, which I'm excited to talk about here. So we are back. Tristan, I will let you go first. Zadarius Smith traded to the Cleveland Browns. How surprised were you, and what's your thoughts on this? Just dive into it.
Yeah, Zadarius Smith was an interesting one because I had just gotten off of work. I was chilling in my car. I was just kind of on my phone for a bit, catching up on texts, really because I work a 12-hour shift, I don't really get a whole lot of time to get on my phone. So I was just catching up on everything. And out of nowhere, I get a notification from Tom Pelissero. The Cleveland Browns have just traded for Zadarius Smith. And I could not believe it. I thought we were done with the edge position. I thought between Obo Okoronkwo, between Isaiah McGuire, between the guys that we already had existing there, I thought that we were done. I really did not think that we were going to add another edge. And if we did add another edge, I certainly didn't expect that edge to be of the same cut as Zadarius Smith. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, besides injury, the past 4 seasons, he's been struggling with some injury, but in the past 4 seasons outside of that, he has been a 10+ sack guy. That's what he's been. And it's so like inspiring and so like just filling you with momentum and energy whenever you see Andrew Berry make a move like this after the draft. 99%, or I should say like 90% of the league has their roster set for this coming season. They might make a move or two like preseason that's small, might make a move or two at the trade deadline. But most teams are done. They've packed it in. They're ready to go on with the season. And that's where I thought we were. I did not think there were any more additions coming. And Andrew Berry just pulls this out of the hat. I was so happy to see it. And I was even happier when I saw the compensation. I mean, trading down a total of 3 rounds, like, come on, come on. Andrew Berry, you are unbelievable. I do not care what our record is this year. He deserves a contract extension. He cannot be fired. He has done every single little thing he possibly could to put this team in a position to succeed. I mean, you look at just what we've done along the defensive line this offseason, not to mention the stuff that we've done around the defensive line, on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, not with the D-line, with the secondary in particular. Like, he has done an unbelievable job. And I don't know if there is many guys in the NFL that do the job that Andrew Berry does and do it better than him. I can think maybe one guy, and it's the guy he learned from, Howie Roseman. I mean, outside of that, it's, you're fighting tooth and nail. Like
and that's a high bar too, to even be in the same conversation as Howie Roseman.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Andrew Berry's better than Howie Roseman. I will not say that. Howie Roseman has won a Super Bowl. You know, he has been one of the best executives in the league for what, a decade plus at this point. He's been unbelievable. So, I mean, yeah, but either way, Za'Darius Smith, super happy, super excited. And the versatility and depth that this move provides for our edge rush. I mean, we're now in a position where we have guys that like that position is so deep. We're thinking about, like, is Isaiah Thomas going to make this team? And he had a for the what, 6th round pick that we used on him. Was it like
I
a
think he
6th or
was a
7th
7th rounder.
Yeah, like the production we got out of him was fantastic. Like you would be incredibly happy with keeping him around and seeing how he can continue to develop. Alex Wright was a 3rd round pick last year, who I have a hard time seeing how he exactly fits and how he finds snaps. You know, like I look at this depth at that position now, and I say I can trust that whoever we're putting next to Myles Garrett, we can get 17 solid games of production there. Whether it's, we expect the majority of that to be coming from Za'Darius Smith. We expect a good chunk of it to come from Ogbo Okoronkwo. But if for any reason those guys are unavailable, whether they're injured or just not having a good day, we have guys in the depth of that position. Isaiah McGuire, Isaiah Thomas, Alex Wright, who you can trust can give you a good game and fill in. And that's what excites me most about this position. You saw it last year when we lost Myles. We lost to a terrible Falcons team, and it was embarrassing. And I never want to see that again. And I think Andrew Berry's made some moves that kind of emphasize that fact. So
yeah,
enough with my rant, Derek. Za'Darius Smith, what are your thoughts? I'm curious, how did you find out about this Za'Darius Smith trade?
So may or may not have found out through Tristan. But similar situation to you. Ironically, I just got off work. I went and did some quick shopping after work. It was pouring down rain here, and I just didn't really look at my phone, for a while. And I pull into my driveway, and I've said this in the Za'Darius Smith initial video. Pull into my driveway, pull out my phone, and Tristan said, like, "Oh my gosh, we just got Za'Darius Smith," and I'm like, "Bro, stop! Like, don't lie to me right now." And sure enough, it happened. And I think it's funny because the Browns currently are one of the most overlooked teams in the NFL, right? And for better for worse, that's a reality. Because of Deshaun Watson, we are one of those teams that the NFL and ESPN and all these programs just won't talk about us, which fine, I'm cool with it. But the football guys, right, who played and who understand things are going, like, y'all don't understand what just happened in Cleveland, and it's for good reasons. Za'Darius Smith is an absolute game-changing, season-changing move by Andrew Berry. And Okoronkwo, I thought was going to be good. Like, I obviously not great as far as like compared to Za'Darius Smith, but I was confident with him, right? This is a guy who over the course of his career has, increased throughout every season with production. And I had no doubt that he was going to put up similar numbers and probably even better numbers with a higher snap rate. And now he becomes a number 3, right? He's now moved into that 3rd role. And you talked about it. Za'Darius Smith, 3-time Pro Bowler in 2019, 2020, and 2022, 2nd team All Pro in 2020. And you mentioned the sacks. These are the last 3 seasons he played. 2019, 13.5 sacks with the Packers. 2020, 12.5 sacks with the Packers. He was hurt in 2021. He had a back injury. So that is fair to mention that, he's racked up a couple injuries. But last year, 2022, with the Minnesota Vikings, he had 10 sacks. 10 sacks last year with the Vikings. And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and not to mention, majority of those came in the beginning half of the season. I think it was like 8.5 in the beginning part of the season. And then I think he got a knee contusion was the technical, like, kind of breakdown. And he kind of wasn't really the same after that. But 8.5 sacks, I think it was like in the first half of the season, which is unbelievable.
Yeah. So coming off of 2021, you know, with that back injury, everybody's going to be talking about, oh, you know, can he still play the same? And he puts up 10 sacks. And like you said, there's a clear dip off at, you know, with his time in Minnesota because of that knee injury. And you got to understand too, it's not like Minnesota was a Super Bowl contender. So, and they weren't bad by any means. They weren't bad, but you know, Za'Darius, his play just kind of dipped off. But you're talking about a guy, and this is really what I want to get into. And you mentioned a little bit of it there, and I want to talk about this further. Couple things. Number one, perfect scenario for both sides, for the Browns and for Za'Darius Smith. Could not be a better situation for both sides. Za'Darius was done with the Minnesota Vikings, wanted to move on, said goodbye to the fans, didn't want to be there, right? We know how that is. We just saw that with Jadeveon Clowney. Like there was no way he was coming back. So he needs to find a new team. Now, he's going to be 31 years old, you know, during the season. He's 30 right now. He's looking for one last big contract. He's looking for that final contract. And I said this in my initial video. If you're a good edge rusher in the NFL, you're always going to be able to make money decently, right? Maybe not a giant contract, but you're going to be able to get a cheap 1 year decent contract. That's not going to be too much and it's not going to be too less. Does that make sense? So for Za'Darius, he's at that point in his career where it's like, I got to get that last bag. I got to get that last bag. Where does he go? He goes to the Cleveland Browns to play opposite of one of the most dominant pass rushers, defensive ends in the NFL, in Myles Garrett, right? So for Za'Darius' side of things, he now has the best opportunity to put up the best numbers in his career. Because Danielle Hunter is great. Yes, I think Danielle Hunter is a fantastic player. He's awesome. He's a great defensive end. He's not Myles Garrett. He's not. And I'm sorry, Vikings fans, you know, if you're watching this, you're going to get offended by that. Understand what Myles Garrett is. Myles Garrett is a one of a kind. There's literally like 3 guys in the NFL, maybe 4. Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa when he's healthy, right? And Micah Parsons is working his way up there, but like there's a big difference between elite and really good. And Myles Garrett is elite, and I would say Danielle Hunter's really good. That's just me personally, right? So Za'Darius, can you tell I'm excited about this, Tristan? Za'Darius is now playing with an absolute monster on the other side with Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle, which everybody's forgetting about Dalvin Tomlinson. And this is what I mean when I say best for both sides. Za'Darius is now in the best spot for him to put up the best numbers heading into a contract year. So he's got that motivation there, right? For the Browns, this is the best case scenario for Andrew Berry and for the Browns because this is this year's Amari Cooper. This is this year's Amari Cooper trade. And everybody forgets, right? We get to this point in the offseason where we kind of talk about players and be like, you know, we don't really need them. And not that people are saying that about Amari Cooper. Go rewatch the Browns season highlights. 90% of them are Amari Cooper. He was a season-changing move. And you got him for pennies on the dollar. Same situation here. It was a cap dump. The Vikings had to move on. And Andrew Berry just sits back and says, you know, we could use another edge rusher. Here's 2 fifths. And we get Za'Darius Smith, who is literally one of the best in the NFL. And I know I keep going on a tangent here. I'll shut up here shortly. But back to what you were talking about, Tristan, right? The depth. Bro, I could sit here and talk for hours, and we could talk for hours about this point right here. Look at that defensive line. And people were upset with me when I said this before. I don't understand it. So, Tristan, I'll get your thoughts on this. When you have Myles Garrett and Za'Darius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson, I don't care who the second defensive tackle is. You can find somebody to be competent. Rotate guys in. I don't care if it's Maurice Hurst. I don't care if it's Perion Winfrey. I don't care if it's Jordan Elliott. I don't care if it's Tommy Togiai and he makes the roster. The other 3 are so good that the second defensive tackle spot is not even that much of a problem anymore. And yes, I want to throw this caveat in here. If Tomlinson gets hurt, we're screwed. All right, I understand that. But you now have a situation where you talked about it. Jim Schwartz versatility. Bro, Myles Garrett on the outside, Dalvin Tomlinson on the inside, Zadarius Smith on the inside, who has dominated inside and out his entire career, with Okoronkwo, who is a pass rush specialist on the outside, who you signed to be your number 2, and he's now a 3. That bro, nobody is stopping that. I'm sorry. Like, maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself, whatever. But this is also, and this is the last part, and I'll shut up, I promise. I know it's been a while, Tristan. You're going, man, is he going to shut up? No. Last point here, right? The young guys. You mentioned it. Alex Wright, Isaiah Thomas, Isaiah McGuire. We have not talked about the draft, but I'm just going to give you a spoiler. Love Isaiah McGuire. One of my favorite picks of the draft by Andrew Berry. He's an absolute stud. Alex Wright in year 2, I think, is going to take a step. And then you have Isaiah Thomas. So between those 3 young guys, they have to now battle because one of them might not make the roster, right? That's a reality. But this buys you yet another year of development for all those 3 guys. And Isaiah McGuire in his first season as a Cleveland Brown has Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith to learn from, on top of having Jim Schwartz as his defensive coordinator. I mean, dude, come on. You can go now. I'm gonna just this gets me so excited. You have no idea how happy I am about this. Like, people don't understand how good Zadarius Smith is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go watch him play for the Packers. He wrecks games, and that's now opposite of Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's unbelievable.
I'm going to get a drink of water.
I just have 2 more things to talk about when it comes to the Zadarius Smith. Number 1 being, one of the things that I was most excited about with the Obo Okoronkwo signing was, I felt like it added us another competent edge to allow flexibility with Myles to push him inside. I know it's something that we've talked about a decent chunk, but I think now we can emphasize it even more, because, I mean, if you feel like you have a mismatch putting Myles Garrett at defensive tackle, which I think there's going to be games this season where putting Myles Garrett right next to Dalvin Tomlinson is going to absolutely wreck another team's game plan, and you've already won checkmate.
Not a lot, but it did happen at times last year.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that you can stack on one side of a line, you can go Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith on one side, and then you can go Dalvin Tomlinson and Obo Okoronkwo, which, by the way, Dalvin Tomlinson's going to eat up the center and guard, and Obo, with his speed and athleticism, is going to be left on an island with the tackle, right? Like, for me, I see matchup nightmares all over this defensive line. The biggest thing, and you said it, is health. This team, this line has got to stay healthy, because I'm telling you right now, if we can get to the end of the season and that line has been able to play together, like, at the same time, on the field at the same time, for 8 to 10 of those games, I think it's probably one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. I really think so. And we'll get into more of the draft discussion, especially when it comes to Isaiah McGuire and somebody who I'm very excited about. I think that it'll kind of elaborate even further on the excitement to the improvements that we've made along this defensive line. I cannot be happier with what Andrew Berry did this offseason. I really can't. I can't fault any move he made. I can't fault questioning if there was a move left on the table, right? I can't nitpick. I can't. Like, it's as close to perfect as perfect can be. Like, when we were talking about the additional signings of Juan Thornhill and Obo Okoronkwo and Dalvin Tomlinson, and we were kind of going into those moves that we made, and even the Elijah Moore trade, we were really happy about those moves. And I think I want to say you gave the offseason a B+, and I think I gave it an A- at that time. I think we can now both confidently say that this is probably an AA+ offseason. Like, I genuinely don't
without
know
a doubt.
what else could he have done? Like, what else could Andrew Berry have done?
So we'll dive into the draft here. I want to say shortly, but knowing us, probably not.
20 minutes.
But yeah, here's my thing with the offseason. Andrew Berry, everything kind of lined up perfect, right? Because if you listen, I don't know if you heard Cleveland Browns Daily, CBD, right? They were talking about this Darius Smith trade, or maybe it was Rappaport on McAfee, either one, was talking about the Darius Smith trade and how this was something that got started before the draft. Nothing happened. And then all of a sudden it got to the point where the Vikings had to do something. And for me, I'm happy that we have a general manager who did not panic, right? Because he could have easily said, yeah, here, take our 4th round pick this year, right? Or something like that. No, he didn't. He sat and he waited and he gave up 2 picks that who cares? Like, who even cares? And he got picks back, like you said. I don't think Andrew Berry is a fantastic drafter, me personally. Like, he has missed on plenty of guys. But and that's something he will have to improve on because every team is built on the draft. I don't care how good you are at cap, free agency, you got to draft guys. That's just a reality. But with that being said, the one thing that nobody can touch Andrew Berry on is finding these situations where teams are in cap hell and they cannot do anything else other than get whatever they can for a guy. You've now seen it back to back. Amari Cooper, Zadarius Smith. And if we have a guy that can find team changers in May, I don't know what else you want. I mean, yeah, we have some problems. Yeah, defensive tackle 2 is still, I would like to see them add somebody else, which I think they will. Linebacker, I'm very frustrated that we didn't add a single linebacker, but I don't care. You have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL now, and you did it like that. Like, bro. I mean, it's insane. It's insane.
No, I mean, like, branching off of what you're saying about the D tackle room, if Andrew Berry finds a way to get Matt Ioannidis on the team episode of this podcast is going on the hub, I don't care. I don't care. It absolutely.
Well, welcome back to the Browns Beat Podcast. We are back.
Welcome back. Anyways, sorry. We can cut that if you want. I'm sorry.
I don't care. None of my business. It is what it is. But yeah. You got anything else on Zadarius that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Mary Kay Cabot had a really good article about this move and what led up to this move. And it highlighted exactly why Zadarius Smith wanted to come here. Because it's been a while now. I mean, something that she said in her article was that when the Browns were ironing out the deal to get Deshaun Watson, part of what took Zadarius Smith so long to make his decision and ultimately going to the Vikings was because he was waiting on the Browns, because he actually wanted to come here when we were in the middle of making it work for Deshaun. But unfortunately, because of us having to prioritize Deshaun Watson, Zadarius Smith didn't want to take too big of a risk. And he eventually said, you know what, I'm just going to take my money with the Vikings. And that's what he ended up doing. He ended up going to the Vikings. Now, he massively has outplayed his contract. Absolutely has killed the value of his contract. And he was due for a payday this offseason, and he was not going to play under the contract that he was currently on. And again, the Browns were an option because we were looking for the ability to add another edge to play to opposite of Myles Garrett. And Za'Darius Smith, keep in mind, he wanted to be here before Deshaun Watson was even here, which shows you just how badly he wanted to play across Myles Garrett. And I don't want to say exactly who, because I think that Mary Kay Cabot put in a lot of work to her article, and it was really good. And I think it'd be disrespectful for me to say who. But the Browns had been starting to shift their eyes in another direction. Za'Darius Smith after that, because there was somebody that they felt like they could get, and another team was looking to swoop in for.
Are you talking free agency or trade?
Free agency, but
we can talk about
post draft for the edge position.
We can talk about that. Melvin Ingram, Frank Clark. Yeah, I mean those were the two options, and that's not disrespectful to Mary Kay. Yeah. That's more of a testament to Andrew Berry. You had Frank Clark and Melvin Ingram as your options, and you left with Za'Darius Smith. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, and so yeah, I mean, we pretty much the Browns were pretty much looking to go in for Melvin Ingram because he had been starting to get more attention, and we wanted to make sure we secured somebody. Well, eventually what happened was the Browns figured out the best alternative with the contract, with eliminating the year off the contract, kind of front loading it this season. So that way he got the money he has rightfully earned, but also he's got the ability to test the free agent market next off season. And that was a big thing for him. And, I think it made so much sense, like you said, for the Browns and for, Za'Darius. And you're absolutely right when you say it was a tough position for the Vikings because they're in cap hell, and they had to do something to move off of that money, which they did. They got in cap relief, and part of the reason why it's cap hell for them is because you got your quarterback that you're paying a ton of money to. You've got Justin Jefferson, who's probably going to end up making quarterback money, right? You still got Dalvin Cook on the team, but I'm pretty sure that they're finalizing that with he's probably not going to be here. Sorry, playing for the Vikings next season. They got rid of Thielen, and they're still in this cap hell. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Kwesi does with the Vikings over the next several years. But either way, I'm just happy Andrew Berry is able to pull this off. Really happy.
Yeah, and it's one of those moves that leaves you speechless, because it's like, how did that happen? Like, how can somebody just sit there and steal Za'Darius Smith, for lack of better words? The only thing, and I said this the last time, this is likely going to be a 1-year rental, so don't get too invested in Za'Darius being here long term, because he's probably not. Which for both sides, it makes sense too. The Browns can't pay him long term, and he also wants a big bag. So the Browns get what they need for this year, and you buy a year of development for the young guys, and it works out for him as well. So, I mean, could not be any better on both sides. But